Gabi. I work at Cogent, and today we have Anna Mills as our moderator. Welcome, Anna, to the first time here as a moderator. We are very happy for you to be here. And we are also thrilled to introduce this topic, the art of building trust, mastering client relationships in the digital area, because this is our first session diving into sales-focused topics or area. So we're pretty excited. We will have Jimmy as our speaker today. Jimmy will have a chance to introduce himself in a bit. Thanks again for being here. If you have any questions, you can leave them on the chat. You can also raise your hand. We will take your questions. And then Anna, over to you.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you, Gabby.
Yep.
So it's great to be here. I've been here quite a bit as a viewer, but this is my first time as a moderator. As she mentioned, my name is Anna. I also work at Cogent. I am the manager of partnerships and customer success. So some of what I do is in the sales realm. I'm a little bit more geared towards marketing now, but I do have most of my career has been in sales. So I'm really excited to talk to Jimmy today. And Jimmy, if you wanted to give an introduction of yourself.
Yeah. So hi guys. Excuse me. My name is Jimmy Hicks. I work with Solar Innovations as an inside sales representative. I've been working with Solar for about a little over actually 4 months to the day. Now that I'm looking at the calendar. So, yeah, it's been a very fun experience. Basically, Solar Innovations is an architectural glazing system. So we are selling anything from folding glass walls, sliding walls, structures, skylights, things like that to all different companies, whether they're commercial or residential. So it's a pretty busy business. So happy to be here and happy to talk with you guys.
Great. Well, thanks so much. Gabby, did you want to kick it off with maybe some intro questions?
Sure, yes. So since this topic is related to building trust, I want to start asking you, like, what are the key components when you are trying to build in trust with a virtual client, virtually?
So from a virtual standpoint, I would say the biggest thing with trust is just being able to, be authentic for starters, and then also just, being able to let them know how you plan to help them out and kind of see what their pain points are and just really give them a chance to, kind of spill whatever they have to say to you and just listen to them. I think listening is the biggest part of definitely a big part of trust. Just to, let people know that you're actually paying attention to what they're saying and you're taking note of it and trying to find whatever ways to, help them out and make things easier for them. So it's definitely a little bit harder because you're not face to face with somebody. But as you continue to build on that trust and kind of build that relationship, as you move along, then you'll start to, get more open with helping them out. And obviously, once they see you help them out on the, on the backside of things, then it kind of builds that trust to let them come to you more and say, hey, he's reliable, he can take care of me, and he can help me with what I need. So just kind of being there and being able to take care of them when they need it is definitely a way to kind of build that trust and keep it going.
So I know that one of the biggest parts of sales is follow-ups, right? There's a lot of, especially now we have 5 million notifications on our phone. So it's very easy to miss a LinkedIn message or a phone call or a text, email. So how do you balance the line between following up with leads and not harassing anyone who does not want to talk to you?
Um, I think the biggest thing of that is obviously, with follow-ups, you have I think for salespeople, follow-ups can be one of two things. It's either something that you could say, oh, okay, well, I have this much time to wait to hear back from them, versus another perspective from a follow-up is, okay, let me talk to them. And instead of, saying, calling them every week or every other day if they're not answering the phone and leaving them 1,000 voicemails and sending them 1,000 emails, you kind of say, hey, I just want to follow up on this. This is what I do typically when I follow up on with customers that we have quotes open with. Ask them if there's any progression in the job, or the project that they're working on, or if we're still kind of in a standstill, and just kind of see if they have a timeline or an idea of when they're going to hear back on that. That way, it kind of gives you some ground as to, okay, well, if it's not going to be for a couple of months, then I can, set that on my calendar to follow up with them then if I haven't heard anything back from them. Kind of gives them a chance to kind of get what they need to get done on their end, and also gives you a chance to kind of let it breathe and not overflow them with a bunch of, calls and harassing them, because then eventually they might get irritated by that. And, obviously you don't want to do anything to kind of ruin that, and kind of be on their bad side of things. So kind of I wouldn't say necessarily it's going to, hurt any future projects, but then it just kind of puts it into a perspective of, okay, well, maybe I shouldn't go to him because I know he's going to be pestering me for something and this job's not going to be done for another 2 years or whatever the case may be. So I think it's just trying to find ways to set up yourself for another call in the future or another follow-up in the future. And that way they know that it's coming, especially if they haven't heard anything back on their end too. So that way you're not, um, trying to get too much information out of them and they don't have the information to give you.
Definitely. I think listening is a big part of that too, right? So if somebody
Absolutely.
says no to begin with, I think, that's a pretty good sign. Do you use any script? This is a question from the chat. Do you use any script while connecting with customers virtually?
So I did at first, and it really depends on, I guess, where you're working. I've worked at a place where you kind of have a script to start off with just because you don't necessarily have a good flow or a good um kind of like a good rhythm of what you're going to say to the customer. It could be, the same thing, or you could say the same thing over and over again, and it's just like repetitive. So I definitely at first use kind of somewhat of a script just to kind of say, hey, let me make sure I hit all of these points that I need to hit while I'm talking to this customer. And then as you start to get more comfortable and you start to make more and more calls, then you kind of understand, okay, now I can say this and I can kind of word how I want to say this and kind of get everything across. And it just seems more natural versus if you're reading from a script, a lot of times you can feel like you're a robot. And sometimes the customers can pick up on that just because you're saying the same things that they probably hear multiple times a day throughout the year. So you just want to find a way to find your own way of kind of getting what you want to get across. So a script is definitely nice to start off with, but then eventually you want to be able to kind of get out of that script that way it doesn't seem like you're reading off of something and it's just like a natural thing and you have an understanding of what you're talking about, because then the customer in turn notices that and they kind of, they can start to ask you more questions and you can start to get into the more the nitty gritty of what you're really calling for. And it just kind of makes that process and that conversation a lot easier.
Definitely. I think that leads us into a question that I had also. Um, we now see all of these different AI softwares. Some of them are for lead generation and they scrub LinkedIn looking for leads that fit the criteria. And then they also have AI software that messages people for you, right? So there's a predetermined script. The
Right.
AI takes care of that all. Have you used any of those tools and what are your thoughts on the use of them? I know, like we just said, um, sometimes if you're following a script, it can feel unnatural. And I know I personally have used some of those AI softwares and people do pick up on it.
Mhm.
So what are your thoughts on that?
So I have not used any, I'm not really big on using a ton of AI, I guess. It's not that I have anything against it, just I find like with AI, it's good for some things, especially if you need to figure out how to word something and you want to figure out how to put things in the best way possible, explaining it. But for me, I feel like I feel like with sales in general, um, you get into a habit of talking to people on a daily basis, and you get all different types of answers and responses to whatever the conversation is about. So I feel like over time, kind of like going back with the whole script thing, AI is going to be good for some things, but I feel like if you're trying to, put a conversation together in sales, it's conversation should be easy flowing. And so then, like I said, you kind of pick up on some things and some, key points that you want to touch on, something that AI can probably do for you. But I just feel like when you do it from an actual, from your mind and your words, and then you can kind of formulate or form it to however you want to form it to whoever you're talking to. I feel like that's how I kind of do things. And I feel like that's how it is for salespeople in general, just because they're so easy to have a conversation with and talk to about whatever. So that just kind of builds on the conversation thing. Not to say that AI wouldn't work. I feel like in some situations, depending on who you're talking to and what the matter of the conversation is, I feel like then you might be able to just kind of use it in AI. But at the end of the day, it just comes down to, okay, well, if I do use the AI, maybe they'll give me some good points that I can talk about, or maybe they have some good things that I didn't even think about at first, that I can kind of find my own way to word it basically and get it back to them. Just because, like I said, you want everything to be as natural as possible. Um, I feel like that's the best way to be natural is to just kind of, go with the flow of things and have a natural conversation, normal conversation, and be engaging in the conversation. And I think that is a big determining factor in,
Well, as I
any
said,
sales. So that's
sí.
that's my take on it.
Edgar, did you want to say something?
Oh, no, I'm sorry. I was just listening to the conversation, and I was thinking about, whenever you are trying to strike these conversations, right? And you want to sound natural.
Right.
You also need to be very clear about what makes you different from your competition, and in general, what distinguishes you as a seller. So, how did you manage to find that? By the time you joined the company, all of those points were already there, and you just kind of worked through it, or was it more like something you figured out as you go, basically?
So a little bit of both. I feel like depending on the business that you're working in, that like for me, for example, I'm in the, construction business essentially. So, um, prior to me having working here, I didn't really have much experience in a working or a construction environment, I guess. Um, I worked with Owens Corning, and they kind of had an understanding of that too. So, but at the end of the day, it wasn't something that I was too knowledgeable on. So, at the
Mhm.
beginning, it was a little bit of a transition to try and, pick up on some of the vocabulary that they're using and the terms that they have for certain products and things like that, and just kind of how they talk and have conversation, and you can kind of pick up on that too. And I've had definitely some phone calls and when I first started working with solar where I had no idea what they were talking about, and it's just stuff that obviously because you don't know that you don't want to seem like you're not capable of taking taking whatever responsibility that they're asking you. um so you always got to use your resources. So my team has been very helpful with me and kind of picking up on things that might get words that might get tossed around a lot in conversation, and certain descriptions of certain products and whatnot, but using my team around me and kind of asking them for support definitely helps me be more comfortable in the conversations that I have. To now, we're 4 months in and I know a lot more about the product, and I've heard a lot of different things about our products and some of the things I didn't even know about before. And so you just kind of pick up on those things, and eventually you get to a point where you just feel comfortable enough to have those conversations. And even still today, I still have some conversations where something might come up that I have no idea what it is. Right before this call, actually, I was talking to an outside sales rep of mine, and was hearing some things that I had never heard before in conversation, just different questions that were asked by our customers. So, um, you pick up on those things, and if it's something that it's important enough, you'll remember it, and as you hear it more and more, you'll see how important it is in the industry that you're in, and then you kind of you're in turn you find a way to, okay, I understand this now, and okay, I've had that question before. Now I know how to answer that. So it's definitely a transition process for sure, just to kind of get to a point where you feel comfortable enough to make the calls and have these conversations with, these customers and these business people that have been in the industry for years and years and years and know all the ins and outs of, what you're selling basically. So sometimes they might even know more than you. So you just want to make it seem that, you want to listen to what they're saying. And if it's something that you don't necessarily know or haven't heard of before, you can say, oh, let me follow up with you on that. And then again, going back to that follow up, whenever you can give somebody an answer that they're looking for that you didn't know, and you can do that in a quick manner, they definitely appreciate that because it shows them that you are actually listening to them and you care about their business and care about, making sure that you can help them out with whatever they're looking for. So then in the long run, it just helps with your, building that relationship.
Okay, thank you.
So I think one of the things you mentioned was that you've worked in a couple different industries in sales. And so, of course, like you said, there's different things to learn with each one, right? Like I previously was a travel agent, and travel is very intricate. So there's all these different passport laws that you kind of have to learn as you go. You know, there's a million countries in the world and you have to know kind of what is for each.
Right.
So there is these small parts of each sales position that you have to learn in order to help build that trust. Um, with that being said, when you think about your sales process and all of these intricate details, if someone were being asked something they don't know and they're in a conversation with a client,
Mhm.
how would you approach that with the client so that you're not ruining any trust, you're not ruining your credibility by saying, you know, oh, I have no idea. How do you respond to a question you don't know the answer to without causing that trust to come into question?
Okay, so it's interesting because obviously, you know, being new in the business, you don't know as much as, like I said, these people that have been working with, you know, construction and whatnot for years and years and years on end. So the best way that I've done that is if I hear something that I haven't, you know, if somebody says, "Hey, I want to get this type of folding glass wall," and or I want to get this product, and I haven't done much of that product at all, and they ask me certain questions about the product, like, "Oh, can we do this?" And we're, I guess my company's a little different because we're a very custom company, so there's not many things that we can't do. So for me, if they ask me a question that I don't necessarily know the answer to, I typically like to tell them it might be something that we've done. I personally have not seen that. You know, we haven't done it this way before. Not to say that we can't do it, but just again, just saying I can, you know, get with somebody and kind of talk with them and see what we can do about that. And if it is something that we can do, you know, I'll run that past you. If it's not something we can do, we'll find another alternate way to kind of get what you were looking for. Because a lot of times they like to see that a lot, with this company, not everything is set in stone right away. There's a lot of different changes that get made, and a lot of different like, I guess, configurations of how we're going to do some of our products and whatnot. So to be able to tell them, hey, we're going to try and do our best to get what we can or to get what you're looking for. Then a lot of times when you come back to them and say, oh yeah, we can do this and we can do this exactly how you want it, or we can't necessarily do this exactly this way because we are limited to, you know, X amount of you know, our dimensions or whatever the case may be. So when you give them alternate options instead of just saying no, we can't do it, it lets them know again, you know, that you're trying to do whatever you can to kind of make it work for them. Because that's building that trust is, you know, going the extra mile and seeing what else you can do to make something happen for somebody that's looking for something so specific and so custom. Just to try and make them happy, because that's the biggest thing is if you can at least show that you're, you know, putting the effort in to try and get to the end goal that they want to get to. I think that kind of helps with going a long way, especially if you don't know, you know, if it's something that you haven't seen before. Just to say, you know, it's not a problem to say, I don't know about that. I haven't seen that yet. Um, because you have other people that have seen that and have been in the situation that you've been in, similar, you know, to this. So it makes it a lot easier for you to go back to them and say, oh, I can't do this, or oh, we can do that, or we can't do it because of this, and kind of give them a reason why versus just saying no.
Yeah.
Because then again, like I said, it's a compromise. You can, you know, work to getting to a point where they're satisfied with what they're getting, and you're able to kind of put that to fruition. So um it's definitely a struggle at some points because you don't want to tell somebody that you aren't sure of an answer, especially when you're supposed to technically know all of the ins and outs, but you pick up on it as you go along. And so then that's why I said you get a lot more comfortable as you know, move along in the business and working with the company, because then you know those answers and you feel a lot more confident about giving them an answer versus saying, oh, I have to go to somebody else to get the answer because you already have it after that.
Yeah. And I think too, I was just thinking this while you were talking. I think almost in a way, um, when you get a question you don't know the answer to and you let them know that you're going to kind of figure it out for them, you're going to go to your resources and check it.
Mhm.
In a way, it does build trust because they know that you're not just pulling information out of thin air and trying
Right.
to convince them of something. You are actually working on the problem with them. And I
Absolutely.
think that that helps build trust too.
Absolutely. It's always a two-way street. You want to make sure that you know, be transparent with them. If it's something simple that you probably should know about, then yeah, then you can kind of run into that problem there and kind of make, fake it till you make it. But realistically, if you're telling somebody that you aren't sure, maybe even that gives them an opportunity to kind of explain to you specifically what they're looking for, versus just saying, okay, well, let me find out if I can, ask somebody, and then don't give them the full details of what they're looking for. So there's just like that miscommunication there. So it also gives them an opportunity to kind of talk to you more about what they're looking for specifically. And um, there's no problem. I've told people multiple times, like I've only been with the company a few months, so I haven't seen this yet. Not to say that we can't do it, or that we haven't done it before. I'm just not too sure about it. Because like you said, if somebody gives you a fake answer just to get them off the phone and say, oh, okay, I got some time before he calls back, it kind of it hurts you in the long run, because then you're going to have to go back, and if you give them the wrong information and you have to say, actually, I was wrong, then it just kind of says, okay, well, did you just say that just to get me off the phone, just to, get your call logged or whatever the case may be? So, um, yeah, definitely, taking the time to go and, do your due diligence essentially to go and find out that answer, or get the closest thing to what they're looking for, and then to take that back to them, whether it be, right away, if it's something that, takes maybe a little bit of time to hear back from the other person about. But when they get that call back and you let them know, a lot of times they'll say, oh, well, I appreciate you, for getting that answer to me quick. And then they'll either say, we do want to go forward with this and kind of want to get a quote, or they'll say, this is not what we're looking for. But either way, um, it lets them know, okay, he did that for me, even though we couldn't take care of him, or even though he couldn't take care of us. So we'll go to him in the future, because we know he's reliable. He's going to be on top of his stuff. So, yeah, that's kind of how I go about it. It sounds tough. It sounds like like I said, you don't want to know, you don't want to make it seem like you don't know what you're talking about, but sometimes it's helpful in the long run.
Um, Jimmy, in your experience or from what you have seen so far, what would you say are the biggest mistakes that a company makes to like break trust with clients? And at the same time, what are some strategies that can help to like rebuild the trust
Right.
that has been damaged? Yeah.
So I think the biggest way that a company can break trust, it's really hard to, especially after your first couple instances and you've done jobs for them in the past. I think the biggest thing of breaking trust is really just not being reliable, I guess. That means, phone calls, following up on, whatever the case may be. Like in our CRM, we have a separate kind of tab of actions that we have, or tasks that we have to do, where it's just a follow up, just to say, hey, we haven't worked with you in a while. Is there anything we can help you with? Is there anything we can do for you? Do you need, samples? Do you need brochures? Do you need, any marketing tools? Is there any quotes that you have, or any jobs that have come up, that just anything that kind of helps them um kind of say, okay, they're still thinking about us, or okay, they still want to, see what we can do or what they can do for us. So I guess that's kind of like a two, a double answer essentially. So the way you build your trust and and regain that trust, is to kind of follow up on them and just be reliable, be efficient. The efficiency is always the biggest thing. Obviously, you want to be able to have a good relationship with them. As you in sales, what I've learned is, I've seen it from um, my dad, who's been in sales for, for my entire life pretty much, and just other people around me that have been in the sales business. You want to get to a point where you can have a good relationship with your customer, whether that be calling to help them with a project that they're working on, or anything work related, or if it's something that's not work related, and you can, you know, call and chat and have a normal conversation just about life, and kind of build that relationship with them on a non-work, from a non-work perspective. Um, I think that's just how you keep that trust. It's really hard to lose it once you get it. At least from what I've seen, I think the only way that you could really lose it is if you just stop being reliable, stop being there for them, aren't able to come through on what you are promising, or what you're telling them that you can do for them, and not giving them a reason and not following up. And I think that's the biggest way you can lose that trust. But in order to get it back, if it's somebody that you've already lost the trust with, it's tough. I've had a couple of customers that I've had to call on, and um, they'll say, "Oh, well, last time we worked with somebody, we didn't hear back from them and whatnot." So you pick up on those things, and kind of see what went wrong the first time, or if they tell you, something that another customer or another client of theirs did, and you kind of pick up on those things and say, okay, well, now I know if I call them and they're looking for something, I should follow up on it if they really are, looking for it, because you want to be able to be reliable for them. So I think just the lack of reliability is what loses that trust. And then obviously once you lose trust, it's hard to get it back. So you just have to do whatever you can, the little things, just to kind of build it, brick by brick essentially. But um, yeah, I think losing trust is you really have to be at a point where you're just not doing what you need to be doing on your end of the bargain to keep that relationship with them. And that's kind of what breaks that trust in the long run.
I think one thing too that can definitely break trust is a lack of clarity.
Right.
So if you quote them a certain number and then you come back and you say, you start the work, and then after you've started the work, you say, oh, actually, it's going to be 3 times that amount. And that kind of goes back to reliability of how clear are you when you're engaging with them, what the product is you're selling,
Yep.
exactly how much is it, what exactly are they getting? And like you said, with reliability, if one of those things is off, you lose that person's trust. And like you said, a lot of times they lose it for the whole company. It's
Yep.
not necessarily for the individual salesperson. Sometimes it is, but a lot of times they relate the salesperson's behavior with the company that they're dealing with. So even if that salesperson leaves, now that company there's a bad taste in the customer's mouth
Right.
for that company. And I think one of the things in this day and age, like with TikTok and Twitter and all these other things, you have to be really careful with how you are engaging and how seriously you're taking that trust. Because if one person thinks that you scammed them, or you underpriced them and then you charge them way more than you said it is so easy for it to spin out of control and
Right.
become a long-term company issue.
Mhm.
So I think, like, with that being said, you mentioned some of the customers had dealt with previous salespeople where they broke that trust.
Mhm.
What were some of the things that you did to rebuild that trust with those customers?
Um, so for me, I've always been taught that, your first impression is that's a lasting impression, no matter what you do and any other times you interact with this person. The first time you interact with them is really where you want to, hit a home run. You want to be able to tell them, hey, I apologize for, whatever the case was. If it was a lack of communication, if it was a lack of follow-ups, if it was whatever the case may be, you want to be able to let them know, hey, I'm going to do whatever I can to, try and help you out. And that just comes in, that's not in sales, but that's just in, like, I worked in customer service for a long time, and it's kind of the same way. You want to be able to kind of, if they're angry about something or if they're upset about something, you want to be able to try and, calm them down and let them know, that you're going to do whatever they can, because like I said, you're a new face to them. So if it's a situation where you have to try and build that trust back, whether that be if they call on you, especially, if they're calling in for something else and they say, well, last time I called in, we had an issue with whatever the case is. You kind of want to, let them know, I apologize for that, even though it wasn't something that you did or were involved in, and
Right.
just kind of assure them that you're going to do whatever you can to help them out. So it's not guaranteeing that you can get them exactly what they want, but it is kind of guaranteeing them that you're going to do what you can on your end to kind of help them out and get them in a better spot. Because then if you can come through with that, or come through and follow through with that in some fashion, whether it be, everything that you were telling them that you could do, or if it was a little bit, it's a little bit goes a long way. It kind of shows them the initiative that you have to help them out, and it shows them that you're just not saying that just to get them off the phone and say, oh, I had another angry customer call me today about something, because it sticks. So your my first impression, I've had a few customers that I've called on, and they were, last time they called on us, something didn't go their way, and instead of just saying, oh, well, sorry about that, it's how can we be better in the future? What can I do for you now to kind of get you back in our good graces, that to let you know that, hey, we're sorry about that, and we're going to do whatever we can to fix that in the future. I think that also goes a long way, because if you don't have that kind of initiative to help somebody out and kind of listen to their pain points that they have about their previous experience with the company, then it's just kind of like, okay, well, they're not really doing anything to change anything. So you just want to try and be a positive light to their negative experience that they had in the past.
I do have another question.
Yeah.
How do like cultural differences influence the trust building process? Have you seen that happening to you in your experience?
You're on mute, Jimmy.
I don't know how that happened. I have not seen that at all.
Okay.
I think again, just your natural, and maybe this is just me, but I'm sure a lot of salespeople have the same mindset and the same mentality. But you know, regardless of who you are, speaking with or who you're working with, you want to be able to be authentic with them and kind of let them know what you can do for them. And I've called people in all different regions of the country and spoken with people in all different regions of the country, and they're all calling for the same thing. We want one end, they want one end goal. They want to be able to provide their customer with what they're looking for, whether it's a commercial application or a residential application. And then in turn, you want to be able to be the person that can put that together for them. So I think the culture, there are cultural differences, obviously. Just I've talked with all different people, but it's cool to kind of to hear where hear where they're coming from basically, and kind of get a chance to interact with them and kind of see what their environment is or where they're working out of, because I've spoken with people in North Dakota, South Dakota, and not to say culturally it's probably a bunch of different cultures there, but um it's still cool to have that interaction because it's just a new person that you get to talk to and learn about and find out ways to help them, and then in turn building that relationship with them and kind of, providing them with what they're looking for, in some fashion. And you can start to break down more about what they do and learn more about them. And then it just becomes more of a natural conversation, more of a natural connection than it is just a work relationship. Um, because at the end of the day, even though it is work related and it's all work at the end of the day, you still want to be able to have a good conversation. Like I had a couple coworkers in the past that would call their clients and their customers to talk to them about their Thanksgiving or talk to them about their Christmas, and not even holidays, spending time with their family, and it's not even a work related thing. And I think that's awesome to have that connection with somebody, because then it makes it so much easier to do the work side of things because you already have that connection with whoever you're speaking with, and um, you might know more about them than they expected to ever tell their customer about it or somebody that they're working with about. But um, so yeah, I think the cultural side of things shouldn't really, I don't think it should really impact how you build a relationship with somebody. I think it should all be the same. Because at the end of the day, that's the end goal, is just being able to help somebody out in a work setting, and then being able to, maybe end up conversating with them and having a relationship outside of work that's, that's a growing thing, and it just kind of builds that bond and continues to strengthen it.
Right.
Definitely.
Um, and on a different angle, well, I know that being a sales representative is more of a solo job,
Mhm.
but if you join like a team where you are a lot of sales representative people, what's the process like beforehand, like before you go and start the campaign or whatever it is you're doing? Is it something that you all plan together? Is it something that each person does by their own? How does that work?
And you mean from like a perspective of like what we do work wise?
Yes, like
Um,
what's if you have like briefings or before
yeah.
you're about the client, or what's the process like before you
So
start?
so for me, I when I started with solar, I got I think I had maybe 4 or 5 different states. We did a lot of transitioning of territory, so I was taking over some of my other coworkers states that they had prior, and so every morning we have a touch base with our whole inside sales team and our estimating team, and we hear about all the jobs that they have done or that they're working on and whatnot, and kind of it's just a good way to catch up on what everybody's doing. But when I first started, um, I there were some clients that or some customers that we had that my coworker would say, "Hey, this guy he's a really good guy to work with. Great conversation that you'll have with them. Trying to take care of them." They already have those relationships that they had when they were in that territory that you just have to try and pick up on. So again, that kind of goes back to that first, that first impression. Because everybody that I was calling this is my first time interacting with them, and this is a new face that they're seeing, and you kind of know what the person prior to you being there, you kind of know what they did for them and how they helped them out, and so you want to try and emulate that and kind of show them that, hey, even though he did that for you, he was taking care of you like that, I want to be able to do the same thing for you. And there are some situations where I would call and say, hey, I got this customer that was unhappy with this product, or I had a customer that wanted to call about a project that we did for them a few years ago, and they know about it. So it makes it a lot easier to kind of have that conversation because somebody else knows about that already. Um,
Is
so
there a software? Sorry to interrupt you. Is
no,
there a software that you have that tracks who's engaged with them previously?
so yes and no. So we use kind of an outdated CRM system. So we if I didn't know, like if I got a call from a customer about a job that they were looking for, or a project that they were working on, um, I would go into our CRM and look it up, and that's how I would do it essentially. But you have to go through a few different links and whatnot, so it kind of gets time consuming at the end of in the long run, swinging things. But it is helpful to have just because you kind of see how their interactions were, and some of the previous customer or the previous my coworkers that have been in that space previously, you kind of see how they interacted with them, and how in depth they are with like the notes that they left, and it just kind of you kind of see already how that relationship was just from reading, the comments and whatnot, and you can also kind of see too in turn, like, okay, if we've done X amount of jobs for them, okay, obviously they trust us. And you hear from your customers that you talk to sometimes too, oh, we love solar innovations. We use them all the time. Or I've seen your product installed on another project at another location and it looks great and we want to do that. Um, so it's always good to hear those things. And then you follow up on that and say, okay, well, let's try and do that for you. Let's see what we can do for you. Let's figure out how we're gonna get to this end goal that you want to get to. And so and once you get that kind of out of the way, then you might run into a customer or two that somebody else had in the past, and maybe they weren't the warmest of people to work with, or maybe they were very short, and or maybe they weren't as organized. But you learn all those things. You kind of pick up on those things just based off of other people's interactions, and then you have to try and formulate how you're going to go about interacting with them, just knowing all the information that you know about them from your other coworkers. So the coworkers definitely in this space have definitely helped me out in speaking with the customers, because sometimes these customers will ask for something that you just cannot provide for them, and when you go and tell them, hey, I spoke with this customer and he's asking for this, and I don't know, we've never done something like that before, they kind of know, and they say, yeah, that sounds about right. This is how we're going to go about it. This is how we've done it in the past. So you just kind of get an idea of how to handle those situations. So then if they come up in the future, you just kind of know what to expect already.
That actually leads directly into a question that I had for you, which is what sometimes, at least in my experience with sales, you have clients or customers who don't know much about what it is you're offering, whether it's a product, a service. They don't necessarily know the specifics of what they need. So,
Right.
like for travel, for example, they wouldn't know that they needed their passport. And in order to get their passport, they have to have their birth certificate and all these different things. And then they would come in, schedule an appointment, and we would say, the list is on our website. They wouldn't go to the website. They would show up. It wouldn't be there. They would get frustrated. How do you deal with clients who are new to your industry? So they might not know much about the subject,
Mhm.
which can often lead to misunderstandings, frustrations, which can make sales conversations complicated.
Right.
So, what are some things that you do to combat that and bring them back in and build that trust?
Well, I think the biggest thing is you just want to be like we said it all, in this last 45 minutes that we've been on, is you want to be transparent. You want to be able to, fully explain to them what it is that your company does. So for us, whenever a customer says, "Hey, I'm looking to get a skylight, or I'm looking to get a folding glass wall," and I was, we were recommended that you guys would be a good company to go to, and then you kind of go down that train of what do you guys do? So you break down your whole process. We do quotes for folding glass walls and all different types of structures and whatnot for different companies, whether business or commercial or residential. Um, but basically, our process is if a customer is looking for one of these options that we have, we'll get whatever information we need from them, whether that's plans, whether that's takeoffs, pictures of the project that we will be doing or the job site that we're doing the project at, just anything to help you out with them, and then or with the quote. Then we go to our estimating team, our engineering team, and kind of say, hey, is this something we can do? Kind of work on the specifics of what we're going to do for them. And then we put a quote in on their end that they send back to us with the price. We send it out to our customer. And then they, go through the bidding process, whether it's them or another company that they're going with, and they're trying, deciding what they want to go with in terms of price, in terms of quality, whatever the case may be. And then if that's something that you decide to go through with and you want to, say, hey, we want to go through with this project in this order, then we get it back to us, we get it to our project management team, and then we go through the fabrication process. So we, pretty much explain to them all what we're doing. And then, they have some follow-up questions with that. And we're able to kind of, answer those questions because it's all just our basic routine and how we do things on a day-to-day basis. So those questions are easier to answer. And then a lot of times they say, okay, well, I'll get back to you and see if we have anything that we can send over to you to help you out. But then again, that's that first impression of, okay, you're listening to what they have to say, and you're trying to help them out and want to help them out as best as you can. Even though they're not really too, familiar with our product and our business. And so then when you're able to, turn that around back to them, whether that be a quote, whether that be an answer to a question that they were looking for, um, then it kind of helps you in the long run for any other future projects that they have, or somebody else has a project that they're doing and they say, oh yeah, you should go to Solar Innovations. I spoke with them. They couldn't really help me with what I needed, but I'm sure they can help you with that. Then it just kind of, it's that chain of, communication, the word of mouth that kind of also, builds that as well. Because if you can, give somebody the, you know, if you kind of build that confidence in them and build that trust in them, then in turn they can say, oh, well, they're reliable. They've helped me with this before. Okay, they helped me with this question that I had for a product that we did for them, or whatever the case may be. So it definitely helps in the long run because other people start to hear about it versus them just looking up the company online for a greenhouse or a skylight that they're looking for and just saying, oh, okay, well, let me just call around and see who sounds the best or who offers the best product. Um, that word of mouth is definitely pretty nice because obviously we can say all day that we have the best products and we have the best service, but when you get it from another customer, and then you get those calls saying that, hey, we were recommended or we were referred to you guys, then it kind of makes a lot of things easier for you.
Yeah, that makes sense.
We have a question again from Edgar. He's asking, if you contact possible customers virtually, what would you say work best to get into a sales conversation?
I think the biggest thing for that is, you want to ask them about their business. You want to ask them what they do. You want to ask them, who they work with specifically. You just kind of want to ask them like their pain points also. Any pain points that they have, or um, if they have an issue with how, our company, if they a bad interaction, you want to be able to kind of listen to them and just say, hey, I'm sorry about that, and I want to be able to help you as best as I can. Let me see what I can do for you. Just anything to kind of keep their attention and kind of if they hear something like, oh, okay, I like that, or if as they're listing their pain points that they have about something, and you're able to say, I'm sorry about that. We can do this for you, or in the past, what we've done is this, and kind of give them an elaborate answer that not only that they want to hear, but something that you can actually, provide for them. I think that helps get you into that conversation of, okay, we're already building this initial trust, then they might want to try and, test it and see how willing you are to help them out to get what they need. Because then if you're able to come through for them, that's going to build your, that connection with you or with them for sales, for any future projects, any future jobs, or any other customers that come in from word of mouth. That's going to help you get into that conversation of, okay, well, they want to listen to what we have to offer now because I listen to them and their pain points and their struggles that they have, and I have a way to kind of correct that and combat that based off of what we do. And then when you're able to actually do that for them, then it helps you with, okay, well, now here's the next step. We want to do this, and we have this job that we want to go through in the future. And then that makes you their main point of contact for any other future jobs or projects that they have.
I do have like my last question that I had in mind is, how do you measure the success on your sales or your team's sales? Like, do you have KPIs? Do you have a tool that can give you these metrics?
So we do have KPIs. And our KPIs will measure just our phone calls that we make, our call time. So how long are we on the phone with these customers that we're calling every day? We track all the quotes that we do in a day. So if we do any new quotes, any quote revisions, that all gets logged. And then obviously our sales and our orders that we get completed. Um, and that's kind of what we go through every day with our huddles, just to kind of keep everybody accountable, keep everybody on track of, what our end goal is and how we plan to get there. And then it also kind of shows, it not I don't want to say it shows you, if somebody has a rough day or somebody doesn't make as many calls, but it just kind of shows you what you want to work on every day, and it kind of keeps you accountable. If there's a day where, I didn't hit my call KPI, but I did, 4 or 5 quotes, and I had good calls, good quality calls that were, 5, 10 minutes long, and kind of listening to them. That's kind of how I go off of my success. Like obviously we want to make our calls and hit our KPIs because that's what we track every day, but um if you're not able to do that, you have to think about the other things that you've done in the day, to where if it's, if you've done, a lot of, 3 or 4 more quotes than you normally do, or you got a couple orders that came through. Those are the things where you say, okay, well, even though I was, 2 calls short of my KPI for calls, or even if I didn't have, um, a full 80 minutes of call time in a day. What did I do in that 80 minutes and those calls and the orders that I did and those quotes that I did that says, okay, I had a good day today. And sometimes you might not get a sale that comes in, but if you're still, as long as are staying on top of what you need to do, then in the long run, that next day you might get 2 quotes that come in, or the next day you might get, 40 calls, and you might have 15 minutes of call time with one person, but you kind of measure those things and say, okay, based off of that, I know I had a pretty good day because I did everything that I wanted to do, and kind of set myself up for, the next day and the day after that, and so on and so forth. So just, you want to stay on top of your KPIs, because staying on top of your KPIs means that you're staying on top of what you need to be doing every day. And if you don't, that just shows you what you have to do the next day to get back up to, catch back up to where you were the day before, and, stay on track and stay on top of, hitting your KPIs daily.
I
Got
think
it.
too, the analytics help you to see your strengths.
Absolutely.
So if you're keeping track and maybe, if you have calls over 5 minutes, you see that those more often lead to quotes, then that becomes your goal, right? And you can lean into that strength that you have of building relationships to where you're having these full-blown conversations as people, not just as a salesperson and a
Right.
client, but
Right.
you're more so creating that trust and bond. And I think analytics is really helpful in seeing where those strengths are and how you can use those to just increase your sales overall.
Right. Absolutely. I agree with that 100%.
Jimmy, now we need to start wrapping up, but
Okay.
before that, I want to ask you, like, what advice would you give to someone that wants to start their sales career? Advices, tips, any resources that you think are helpful to start with? Anything.
I think the biggest piece of advice that I could give you in terms of if you're wanting to get into sales is, don't try and find something that's going to fit you perfectly. Um, in my sales experience, I've done construction and roofing, which is essentially construction. So 2 things that I never would have thought that I would ever be doing sales wise. But it's something that, it gives you another something under your belt that you could say, okay, well, I know how to do this. I can do that. And I think once you're able to get into that, into that field, into that sales field, and you get a chance to really work on your strengths and see what your weaknesses are, and then how you are able to kind of get back up to where you feel like you're comfortable enough to be in the sales business, because it's never going to be easy at first. You're always going to have, new challenges, and there's always going to be new things that come about that you aren't used to or haven't experienced yet. Um, but I think on the other side of that, you really start to learn more about yourself and whether you're able to be in the sales industry. And you have to be able to have some tough skin for sure. Because these people that you call on, they might not be the friendliest, and they might not be, they might be very snippy or whatever the case may be. But if you're able to kill them with kindness and still be able to come through with what they're looking for, at the end of the day, then they can only be so mad at you because you're still looking out for them. You're still doing what they can. And then a lot of times they'll warm up to you also. Um, so I think the biggest thing that I can say is in sales, just when you get into it, you got to really put your head down. You got to, learn the ins and outs of the business. Every little thing you can pick up on, be a sponge to the people around you, because they're people that have been in the business for however long they've been in it, and they know, how to deal with certain situations that you might come about or that might come about in your life. But it definitely helps you um, kind of solidify yourself and say, okay, I can do this, and I can be in this environment, and I can have these conversations, and I can get some criticism that I might not get or I might not deserve, essentially. But it's just something that it's just it's a natural thing. It happens. You're not everybody you call is gonna be happy and open to talking to a new person or whatever the case may be. But you just got to be able to be keep your head on the not head on swivel, but you want to be able to be sharp and be on point with all your things that you do to not only better the company but better yourself in your sales, in your sales career. And you never know where it's going to take you at the end of the day. Like I said, I never thought I'd be in a sales role for construction, but here I am. I love it. Love the people that I work with. I love learning more about the ins and outs and the intricacies of the business, and being able to eventually get to a point where I'm, you know, being the same for somebody else. So my biggest thing for sales is just to be a sponge. Listen, take whatever advice, whatever lessons you can learn, do it, because they're always going to have to be applied in some way, shape, or form in the future.
And there's always space for improvement, like
Always space for improvement.
always.
Nobody, it is, you will always find something that you didn't know before or
Yeah.
that you needed to work on that you didn't think you did. So,
Definitely.
Awesome.
All right. Anna, do you have any closing comments or questions?
Just a thank you to Jimmy. This has been our first tech social that we've done with sales. So thank you so much for talking with us. It was
of course.
very interesting to hear you talk about everything. And I think it was very helpful, at least for me. I learned a lot from you. So thank you for that. And thank you to everybody else for joining.
No, thank you guys for having me. I appreciate it. This is my first time doing something like this. So, it was cool. I enjoyed it. I had fun.
It was great.
Yeah, it was great.
Appreciate your time and wanting to participate in this tech social.
Of
Thank
course.
you, Anna. It's been great having you as well.
Thanks, Gabby.
And yeah, thank you, Edgar, for supporting us with your questions as well.
Yes, thank you for the questions.
Yeah. All right. So we'll meet again next week, as always, for Tech Social. Again, thank you, Jimmy. We'll keep in touch for sure.
Absolutely.
And have a great one, everyone.
Thank you, guys. Have a good one.
Thanks, everyone.
Bye-bye.